During his speech, McConnell said, "We all know inflation and the economy are the biggest problems facing Americans today. We are a big and a diverse country. 93% of Americans hardly ever agree on anything, but Democrats are unifying the country in unhappiness, at a dark path down which have taken our economy." McConnell once again blamed inflation on Congress, saying that last year, without a single Republican vote, the stimulus checks passed. McConnell warned that a budget reconciliation package under negotiation is going to put more pressure on the economy, citing more than $200 billion in tax increases. The package would include to extend the solvency of Medicare. McConnell told reporters business owners are watching apprehensively as Democrats debate another dose of bad policies. Now, you can expect a big stimulus check soon. Democrats and Republicans have officially signed into law legislation that is going to provide new stimulus checks to millions of low-income households with up to $1,000 in financial aid. Last year, the enhanced child tax credit provided millions of parents in the U.S. with financial relief. The last expanded child tax credit payment was dispersed in December, but the pause led to the increase in the number of children in poverty from 12.1% to 17%, also putting 3.7 million children below the poverty line. And now with inflation on the rise, plus a possible recession looming, several states and lawmakers are planning to send families with more money starting this year. 12 states are granting additional child tax credit to low-income families. Many families in need of extra money due to the cost of inflation will get $1,000 per child annually. Governor Phil Scott of Vermont has signed a new tax cut package that includes a statewide child tax credit for children to 5. The tax credit will phase out at a rate of $20 per every $1,000 earned over that threshold. The credit is fully refundable. The bill also allows for a fully refundable child independent care credit of 72% of the federal child independent care credit allowed to the taxpayer. It increases the earned income tax credit to 38% of the amount granted by the federal government and includes tax relief for student loan borrowers, retirees, and veterans. The final version of the $40 million bill allocates $32 million to pay for the new statewide child tax credit, which legislators estimate will help more than 30,000 Vermont children. In a statement, Governor Scott called the bill a step in the right direction, knowing that previous proposals included a package worth nearly $50 million.
To help, will pass the Active Shooter Alert Act. Mr. Morelli described it very well, and I agree with you. It is a step, and we must have what you said you support, and I do too, the ban on assault weapons and other lethality. This vital legislation that we're doing today will quickly warn communities when a gunman opens fire, a common-sense life-saving measure widely supported by law enforcement. Let us recognize Congressman David Cicilline, a longtime champion in the fight against gun violence, for spearheading this legislation and also being the author of the assault weapons ban. The fourth and fifth bills that our Democratic majority will pass this week are strong to defend women's health and freedom. Our caucus has been hard at work assembling a robust and resolute legislative response to Supreme Court's assault on reproductive rights. We passed this legislation before the WIPA, the Women's Health Protection Act, which will enshrine the essential protections of Roe v. Wade as the law of the land. And with our Ensuring Women's Health to Reproductive Freedom Act, we will reaffirm a constitutional right to travel and have access to the abortion pill. Let us salute Congresswoman Judy Chu for her leadership. We passed this bill in the fall. We need to pass it again. Congresswoman Fletcher, Strickland, and Congressman Raskin for their tireless, determined leadership on the Ensuring Women's Health to Reproductive Freedom Act. Madam Speaker, this legislation that the House Democrats will pass this week is the latest in our work to defend America's health, security, and our freedom. Our majority will never relent in this fight now and in the future. I urge a strong yes vote on the rule today, and yes.
Madam President, I rise to discuss helping our service members exposed to toxic burn pits. Let me tell you about U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. He was a strong, healthy, fit combat medic who served tours in Kosovo and Iraq. When he returned home, however, he began experiencing fatigue. He started bleeding from his ears and nose and completely lost his voice. After consulting multiple doctors, he and his wife were sitting in an exam room waiting for test results when the doctor came in with tears in his eyes. He explained that Sergeant Robinson had an extremely rare form of stage 4 lung cancer and exclaimed, "What have you been exposed to?" Sergeant Robinson thought back to his tour in Iraq. He remembered seeing and smelling smoke from pits the size of football fields at his base near Baghdad. While serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, millions of U.S. troops have lived and worked near burn pits. They're basically burning trash heaps that the military has used for decades to dispose of everything from human waste to trash and electronics and jet fuel. And they spew forth many of the same dangerous toxins that were at ground zero after 9/11. The VA estimates that 3.5 million service members were exposed to burn pits around the world, many of them veterans who are now suffering from permanent injuries and illnesses ranging from chronic bronchitis to cancer. But when these veterans seek treatment, they face an often unsurmountable burden of proof. For Sergeant Heath Robinson, the VA denied him compensation and prescription medications because it wasn't proven that burn pits were the cause of his illness. Army Sergeant Robinson died in 2020. He was only 39 years old. I have heard from many veterans, service members, and their families who have also been raising the alarm about burn pits.
Actually struggling right now because of the crisis. States like California, Illinois, and Tennessee have already agreed to send out more relief checks, and that's some great news. The Supreme Court Justice has a plan to retire and is throwing another curveball into the efforts to get President Biden's agenda passed. Appointing Justice Breyer's replacement to the court is a win for President Biden and the Democrats. By the timing of the announcement, could make it more difficult for Biden and Democratic lawmakers to negotiate and pass the Build Back Better bill, which is a social spending plan which everyone wants to get done. Biden has told reporters that plans to complete the process as quickly as possible are underway. Biden said he plans to announce his nominee soon. Democratic aides have already indicated that the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, will try to follow a confirmation timeline close to that of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. A nomination will be followed by confirmation hearings from the Senate Judiciary Committee, and eventually a confirmation vote on the Senate floor. So while nothing prevents the White House from trying to get the spending package finished before the Supreme Court vote, it would definitely be a challenge to do so. It's important to remember that most Democrats want to see a version of the Build Back Better passed as soon as possible. When asked about whether there were concerns that the Supreme Court nomination process would complicate other legislative priorities, like the Build Back Better, Vice Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, "We are entirely capable of doing more things at once. So there's a lot of things going on, a lot of progress being made,